Battlefield 2042, I don't have to tell you that the state of the game is extremely rough right now due to a slew of disruptive bugs, glitches, and technical issues, inconsistent tone and atmosphere that's thrown a lot of people off, a general lack of content, downgraded or missing features, lack of communication, and a lack of listening, which is what's led to such a poor score, both Metascore and user score, on Metacritic. And on Steam, things aren't faring any better, with still mostly negative reviews, a mere 33%. And matters are only made worse when DICE drew ire from Battlefield 2042 players after removing a fan-favorite mode, Rush, which is a staple of the Battlefield series, from the featured playlist. While you can still use Portal to create a custom Rush game, because you don't earn experience, because they had to turn that off because of XP farming server issues. The fact of the matter is that people don't have the incentive they used to have to play Rush as part of that feature playlist where you can earn XP and progress. So many people requested that DICE don't remove this mode from the feature playlist. They went ahead and did it anyway, when this one mode seemed to be the one saving grace of the game at the moment. Somehow they decided they shouldn't keep it in permanently, given the state of the game. And so players are really starting to flood out of Battlefield 2042, with its player base not looking particularly great, especially in comparison to older Battlefield entries like Battlefield 5, which had a 24-hour peak of 18,828 versus Battlefield 2042's measly 8,563. And even Battlefield 1 is starting to approach Battlefield 2042 numbers with a 24-hour peak of 7,487 players, which is quite close to Battlefield 2042's 8,500. And just earlier today, Battlefield 1's concurrent players had actually surpassed Battlefield 2042 by a little bit, according to Tom Henderson here, who posted this screenshot earlier today. Battlefield players are getting fed up of 2042's slow content and update rollout, and the fact that it's just such an inferior experience compared to past entries. 2042 is broken enough that we have seen a substantial number of people asking for refunds, but there seems to be a special case with Battlefield 2042, especially where Steam is concerned, where they're actually giving out refunds if you're persistent enough, even after the grace period of 14 days since purchase and 2 hours of playtime has been used up. As Charlie Intel reported here, Steam giving Battlefield 2042 refunds as players claim the game as broken. It's not a claim, it's a fact that this game is broken, even on the most fundamental level. The shooting doesn't even work right from time to time, which is obviously incredibly disruptive, given that the whole point of the game is to shoot other players, and when even that isn't working as it should, I mean, what does that tell you about the state of this game? Steam is providing Battlefield 2042 players with full refunds due to the disappointing performance and ongoing issues. Scrolling down, you'll find one particular case that this article highlighted. It notes that Steam's refund policy stipulate that you must have purchased the game within 14 days of the request and also played the title for no more than 2 hours. But there's a Steam user who shared a screenshot showing a correspondence between him and the Steam representative, where he actually managed to get a refund for Battlefield 2042 despite having been more than 14 days since he purchased the game and despite him having played more than 2 hours, by pointing out just how broken this game is and how so much time was wasted on this game because of its broken nature. So this is what the correspondence looks like. Clicking on it will take you to this larger screenshot where we can read, "Hello dear Steam support, I would have less than 2 hours of playtime if I didn't spend 2 hours in the settings because of the bug where the game was resetting my controls or not allowing me to rebind them. The broken state of the game and its bugs did not allow me to test the game properly, which is the reason I wish to refund the game. And my refund request was within the 14 days but was declined due to 4-hour playtime. Once again, I asked to reconsider and provide me with a refund for this broken, buggy game. I'm using Steam for 15 years and I hope you can make an exception and refund me the game. I'm very frustrated and annoyed with this game, as I'm sure you're aware of the situation with it. Cheers." The Steam user. And then the response that he got after pleading was, hello, as a customer service gesture, we issued the refund for this purchase. So yeah, Steam and its representatives are willing to be flexible if a game is broken enough. And with Battlefield 2042, there have been plenty of cases where people have actually managed to get a refund way past the grace period. With this user, it was only 4-hour playtime, with the justification being that 2 hours of that was spent on settings, and the general pleading here and the pointing out of the game's broken, buggy nature was enough to convince this representative to make an exception. And it does seem like, it's not necessarily always going to be an immediate, yeah, just take your money back for Battlefield 2042. You do have to make a case and really point out just how broken and buggy and unacceptable the state of this game is. But the fact that it's still possible after all this time to get a refund, and the fact that a good amount of people have managed to get their refund even after the 2 hours playtime grace period, as pointed out here by this Reddit user who provided instructions on the best way to convince Steam to give you your money back for Battlefield 2042. What this seems to suggest is that Steam and its representatives on some level understand the level of fur surrounding the Battlefield 2042 backlash, which so woefully mismarketed the gameplay elements that were advertised, the tone of the game. And alongside that, even with the beta, it was fairly obvious the game wasn't ready for launch, but they shipped it anyway. It's just not acceptable, especially when this keeps happening time and again. And the fact that Steam is being generous enough to make an exception where it's needed is certainly going to make a lot of people who feel duped by Battlefield 2042's marketing feel happy and more loyal to Steam as a service. And while the case reported by Charlie Intel only had 4 hours of playtime, just 2 hours more than what the policy indicates, I have seen people who have successfully gotten a refund even after 24 hours of playtime, 21 hours of playtime, a little over 10 hours of playtime. Beyond the state of the game, many people are not happy about the level of communication that's going on between developers or community managers and the community itself, with posts like these getting a lot of traction. Come on, do something, Battlefield Direct Communication. That being the Twitter page that was dedicated to direct communications with the community, except their last post was on December 16th, 2021, almost a month ago. Or rather, there is a response tweet below that from December 18th, 2021. Still, we're talking about almost a month with zero communication from Battlefield Direct Communication. Now, I understand that it was the holidays and, people went on break, but it doesn't take much to just send out some tweet, some kind of assurance where they say, all right, we're on break right now, but here's what we're looking into, here's where we're planning to bolster things, and just maintain some form of communication that will assure people who bought a product expecting to enjoy it during the holidays instead of wrestling with it. Here's another similar post whose headline reads, do we just not have a community manager for this game? There's such an absence of communication that this is a topic that is brought up often in the Battlefield 2042 subreddit, with people joking with quotes like, I think an active CM might be a legacy feature, with legacy feature being the term that DICE used to describe very basic first-person shooter features like voice chat and a scoreboard. People are also generally celebrating Battlefield 2042's failure, not because they actually wanted it to fail, but because its failure might finally slap EA and DICE back to reality and allow them to see the error of their ways and how they rushed this game to launch, how they took Battlefield in a direction that players didn't want, so on and so forth. And so here's somebody pointing out how Moist Critical, one of the most prominent content creators on YouTube, ranked Battlefield 2042 the second worst game of 2021. We still get top posts that remind us of all of the broken promises surrounding this game, like when Andrew Wilson once said, featuring maps with unprecedented scale, the next edition of Battlefield takes all the destruction, player agency, vehicle, and weapon combat that the franchise is known for and elevates it to another level. The team is focused and the game is ahead of our internal milestones. The lie detector determined that was a lie. You still see top posts about just the general lack of content surrounding this game, how the lack of weapons in particular for 2042 is unacceptable. Only 4 ARs, 4 SMGs, 2 LMGs, 2 shotguns, 3 snipers, 3 marksman rifles, 3 handguns, and 1 launcher. Just vastly inferior numbers compared to past entries offerings. This is all on top of the bugs and glitches and technical issues that persist even after some of the updates that have come out since the game's launch. Like, here's a bit of gameplay showing the world map glitching out as the player goes in and out of crouching or going prone and standing up. Here's somebody else experiencing the game, teleporting them around as they try to kill an enemy. That looks something like this. Wait for it. Yeah, that.
What the fuck is happening?
I wish any of us knew, buddy. And one trending post today is this video that basically serves as a compilation of bugs that is played in parallel with what developers promised about this game. Let's just say the devs' words have aged way worse than milk. It makes milk look like wine.
2042, a brand new setting for us for Battlefield. This is exciting. What got us to this era?
Yeah, it's actually one of those moments I remember quite dearly. So I think it must have been 3 years ago now. We kind of headed up on the 11th floor at DICE, and we were actually supposed to look at the concepts for this next Battlefield game. And this time around, the team went quite wide. I think we looked at 12 different concepts or so. Some really unconventional things, some that took us back in time, some things that took us into the future. We looked at ripmatics and, a lot of concepts. And then we got to this thing that we called 2042. And we all looked at that, piece and kind of looked around the room. And we just kind of felt it in here.
Issues with bullet spread and hit registration right there.
The best pieces of Battlefield 3 and 4, that notion of like modern warfare, and then spicing it up a bit with cutting-edge hardware. And some of that we've seen in the last couple of days, of course.
Yeah, another big thing for us as well. This
iron sight aiming, not working. Shoulder aiming, working.
Focus on multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big one for us. I mean, multiplayer is what we do best, and we've done best across now the 2 decades the Battlefield.
Multiplayer is what we do best. Oh my god, what was that? I've never seen that one.
Of course, now we've talked about all-out warfare. We're going to bring back Conquest and Breakthrough on a bigger scale than ever. 150 players.
What is happening?
Land masses to play on.
Let's get into the absolute nitty-gritty of things, though. Daniel, big changes to Conquest. As Oscar mentioned, big focus for us in this first section.
Yeah.
But Conquest has had some significant changes to meet this big new scale that we have for 2042.
Sure. I mean, it is a leap for us, right? And when we go to 128 players, and when you go to a larger play space, you can't just kind of copy what we've done before. We had to also kind of reinvent how we approach level design and how we approach pacing in the game. So what we're doing this time around to really encapsulate
takedowns not working,
Battlefield and the pacing,
glitching out, and
that our players know and love.
Not doing the damage they should.
Flashy things either. There's lots of just small interactions we've built back into our levels now.
Yeah.
To give players
some of these I've never seen.
Kind of move about the space.
Yeah, we had those in Battlefield 4 as well.
Every week we discover something new that we love about these new ones. It's so cool. Of the maps, though, of course, they're more than just maps. They're very dynamic in their nature of them. We've obviously took a lot of inspiration from our past and looked, now very much at the new technology offered to us by Frostbite and the upgrades that we've done on all our engines. These worlds are a lot more dynamic now, Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked for a good 3 years now on some of these new weather and evolution systems. I remember in that first pitch about the game, maybe it was Daniel, maybe it was someone else.
Paired with these clips,
wouldn't it be cool?
These words, oof.
Onto the battlefield, they could turn everything kind of upside down and cause massive destruction. And I think everyone was sitting there kind of nodding. We looked over at the tech team and they're like, "Oh, are we supposed to make this work?" And then kind of a year later,
timing.
that first prototype. And I remember us showing it to other team members.
Yep, hovercrafts are broken.
It has to be fake. Can't look like that. And we were like,
Can go up walls,
and I think
annihilate helicopters,
a thing that would run like spectacle on the maps in massive ways. But now it's kind of one of the
and survive all that.
team's super pumped, and we're just looking forward to July 22nd at EA Play Live, where we get the chance to show the world what the DICE LA team have been working on. It's quite special, I'd say.
It's quite special. Oh, you were not wrong about that. Moving on, I'd like to give you some glimpses at the performance of Battlefield 2042, both what's going on in game and commercially. Tom Henderson tweeted about Hazard Zone. This was introduced in Battlefield 2042, and GameSpot has a good summary of what this mode is. Hazard Zone is a new competitive multiplayer mode that mixes some solid ideas from the Battle Royale genre with 2042's approach to specialist characters. The result is a squad-based free-for-all match in which you and your team of 3 other players hunt down objectives and kill other players before making your way to an extraction point and trying to abscond with the goods. It had grand ambitions, but its ideas never panned out into something that players genuinely enjoyed. And the end result was that Hazard Zone has been played by such few players that the developers didn't even bother to report statistics internally on it after Thanksgiving, day 7 after worldwide launch. So yeah, Hazard Zone is an unsurprising bust, and I wouldn't expect support on it. So the outlook surrounding a game isn't helped by the fact that one of your flagship modes that you promoted throughout the marketing of your game turns out to be one of people's least favorite ways to play the game. This is especially highlighted by a post from 2 days ago that's been upvoted quite a bit with a very positive ratio that reads, "How many of you tried Hazard Zone literally once and never again?" As for overall sales figures surrounding the game, while we don't have exact numbers yet, we can get a good idea based on Tom Henderson's report here, whose tweet reads, "I've also been told the 4.23 million sales number for Battlefield 2042 that are reported for week 1 sales are in fact total players cumulatively, so people who got refunds and played via the 10 hours trial are included in this number. So a portion of this number includes people who returned the game, as well as people who tried this game out for free, which means that the total sales of Battlefield 2042 is likely less than 4.23 million. Now that's just first week numbers. We may find out more when in February of 2022, EA hosts their financial meeting for that quarter. But comparatively, Battlefield 5 sold 7.3 million copies in its first quarter. It launched on fall of 2018, and then this report came out on February 2019. And 7.3 million copies for Battlefield 5 turned out to disappoint EA, about 1 million fewer than what EA expected. So this figure was already a disappointment. The question is, can Battlefield 2042 even reach these numbers, 7.3 million copies, by the time first quarter results are reported for this game? Given that we're only looking at 4.23 million units in sales, with a portion of that not even counting because some of those are people who refunded and some of those are people who played a free trial. And given that most of a game's sales, at least a significant portion of them, tend to happen during the launch period, I'll be honest with you, I cannot foresee this number skyrocketing to over 7.3 million copies and at least doing better than Battlefield 5, which for EA was already disappointing sales-wise. Then you have Battlefield 1 numbers, which passed 25 million players as of January 30th, 2018, which is the spring after the fall 2017 launch of Battlefield 1, more specifically the October 21st, 2016 launch of the title. Now, the 25 million players figures is a player count and not sales figures, because the number includes individuals who bought a used copy, game share on their console, or probably played during a free trial period. So the number is the same type of number shown here by Tom Henderson, the 4.23 million being total players cumulatively, but still 25 million players is a lot of players for the first quarter of a new game. And Battlefield 2042 with 4.23 million total players cumulatively as of the first week of sales, it doesn't feel like it's gained anywhere near the amount of momentum that is needed in order to reach the 25 million players figure. So while we don't have exact sales figures, we can glean at certain things based on early information we have right now. It seems to be that Battlefield 2042, compared to past entries, isn't selling as well as EA would like. And given how many players are leaving and all of the negative feedback and word of mouth that's been spreading, it seems unlikely that people will be excited to pick this game up in the near or even distant future. We're looking at a game that isn't selling as well as it could have, that is losing tons of players, that is still plagued with all kinds of design and technical issues, and whose direction feels conflicted with what the community, the Battlefield community, desires from the series. People also poked fun at Laura Mealy's statement on Battlefield 2042's current state, as reported by Tom Henderson here. In an internal email at the beginning of December, EA's Laura Meal on Battlefield 2042 said, "We believed we were ready for launch through mock reviews and our testing, which showed strong service stability. Our critical reception was initially strong in the low 80s. I would love to learn how they conduct these mock reviews that were so off the mark. Low 80s, she says, but if you look at Metacritic right now, the PC version of the game is at 68 in terms of Metascore, and looking at the PlayStation 5 version, it's even lower at 61. So yeah, way off the mark. Where do you find these mock reviewers, and what is this process like? because it feels like an incredibly dumb way to assess whether your game is ready for launch or not. Especially when players were literally telling you during beta that this game was clearly not ready for launch and that it'd take a miracle for the game to fix the amount of issues that it had during the beta before the game comes out in a couple weeks, a couple days. Laura's statement finally concludes with, but as more players came into the game, we encountered a few things. That's putting it mildly. Mealy went on to acknowledge, we have had feedback from some players on feature choices. These were conscious choices by the dev teams, but not everyone agrees with them. You mean like the removal of basic legacy features such as voice chat and the scoreboard? If that was a conscious choice, let me tell you, boy, was that the wrong choice. In the responses, plenty of people spotlighting the flawed mock reviews process that leads to pretty inaccurate results. And then in response to Tom Henderson's tweet about Laura Mealy's statement, people pointing out just how wrong the mock reviews were, noting the Metascore and the user score. Scrolling down, you've got people poking fun of EA's and DICE's internal testing, showing a clip of this guy who infamously is not doing a great job at checking these people. Now, I do want to point out that QA testers often face the brunt of backlash, with many people blaming them for not noticing these bugs, but the reality tends to be that QA testers notice the bugs and pass that along, but it's up to the developers to fix that stuff if they even have the time to fix that stuff, given the executives' mandates to launch the game by a certain day with very little leeway there. But given the number of issues that Battlefield 2042 has, it's baffling that Laura Mealy would insist that our testing showed strong service stability when it did not take much time at all for people who play the beta or the final game to notice just how many issues this game was plagued with. So yeah, it's no wonder that players are leaving Battlefield 2042 in droves and preferring to just go back to Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1 instead. And it is no surprise that early signs seem to indicate that Battlefield 2042 sales will suffer and disappoint, certainly EA, especially compared to much more successful releases like Battlefield 1, though only time will tell for that one. We'll get more exact figures in the not-so-distant future. But until then, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the current state of the game, whether you have been able to get a refund for Battlefield 2042 despite having gone long past the grace period that the launcher's policy offers, and just what your general experience has been like with this game and what you think the future holds for this troubled IP. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.